Oh, man, do I owe you guys big time. I know it. I know it. I do. I do. Thank you so much for hanging around for 45 extra minutes to get us started tonight on the Voice of College Football. Yes, I was all psyched up and ready to go for a big midnight show that we used to do all the time on Sunday nights that we haven't done for quite a long time. And I forgot that it was the Memorial Day holiday. My son comes over every Sunday night. My son comes over every Sunday night and stays till just about 11 o'clock because he's got to get up bright and early at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's almost like clockwork. He walks out the door at 11 o'clock at night, which, of course, he is welcome to stay as long as he wants. Of course, has lived with me most of his life, but is welcome. Of course, it's his home. But that's our weekly ritual. What has become a tradition now since he has been out of the house, that he comes over on Sunday night. So he leaves at 11 o'clock because he's got to get up early. But tomorrow's Memorial Day. So I did not anticipate, and it hit 11, 11:15, 11:30. I finally, about 11:45, said, what time are you going to get up in the morning? He's like, well, I don't have any work. And I went, oh, yeah. And my apologies to everybody out there. I'm not kicking my son out of the house so I can start up a call-in show. I'm sorry. I am sorry. I am sorry. I will do whatever I need to do to make it up to all of you. But thank you so much, because I was really fired up when I decided earlier today to do a call-in show at midnight. And I titled the show something to the effect of, "It's time to get serious, but also let's have some fun." I know the title makes no sense, but I think you get me. It's time to get serious about college football. We're hitting Memorial Day weekend, and tomorrow, meaning Tuesday, it's going to be June 1st. So we're only going to have June and July. Halfway through the July is going to be conference media days. So we're only about 6 weeks away from conference media days. And the first week of August, the boys will be on the field in camp. So not a whole lot of time, even though it seems like forever, that we have to talk about college football to get everyone set for 2021. So I thought, it's time to get serious. It is time to get serious here. But we want to have fun too. So. And for us hardcore college football fans, it is fun when we get serious, talking hardcore, serious, nuts and bolts college football. So welcome in. And again, my sincerest apologies. What do I need to do? What do I have to do? I will do just about anything to make it up to everyone for being late tonight. But family comes first. And again, my Sunday nights reserved for my son, who gets up early to go to work every Monday. Well, I forgot it was Memorial Day and he's off. So when he typically walks out the door at 11 p.m. like it's clockwork so he can go to bed and get up early the next day, he hung around. And so for about 2 or 3 hours tonight, we were looking at baseball cards. He heard recently that the card industry is taking off. Baseball cards, Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, pick your cards, whatever you're into. And the only thing I've ever been into were baseball cards, and to a certain degree, football cards. That's all I ever cared about. Maybe some Elvis cards. If somebody wanted to buy me Elvis cards, I never bought them myself, but that's all. That's it for me. But basically, baseball cards. My whole life, baseball cards from the time I was about 9 or 10 for about until I was in my mid to late teens. Baseball cards. Not all this other stuff, but and I know that they've been devalued throughout the years. I've got, I sold a bunch of them, but I still have at least 10 or 12,000 baseball cards, something in that range. And so he was over, we were talking about it. He said, yeah, I've seen all this stuff online about cards are blowing up. The value of the card industry is blowing up right now. He's like, let's look at our old cards. So I get into my closet and we're just bringing down stacks and stacks of boxes of old baseball cards, and then football cards, basketball cards to a lesser extent, mostly baseball cards. And we're just looking through them, and I'm going through and remembering baseball players that I'd forgotten about 20 years ago. So that's what I've been doing with my night. And it sounds like the most boring, mundane thing to do in the world, the stupidest thing to do. But to me, hanging out with my boy, looking through old baseball cards, good enough. Good enough. Good time. Good time with some ice cream, with some Oreos. Beautiful time. All right, everyone. Once again, my apologies. I'm not going to be able to say I'm sorry enough, but that was my intent. I thought midnight live stream. We're going to talk serious college football. We're going to get after it. It's Memorial Day weekend. I'm going to emphasize to everyone, we only have June and into July before media days, on into August camp. It is time to get revved up and talk serious college football. And we're going to break it down in a serious fashion, but we're not serious around here. You know what I mean? We're going to have fun. And then, yeah, the midnight launch was my target, but yeah, my boy got in the way in a good way, which also leads me to, I've got about 2.5 months to figure out what I'm going to do for opening weekend of the college football season. I want to seriously think over how long I could possibly sit here and broadcast live. If we can do 24 hours of college football coverage right here. All right, we got a call coming in here at the Voice of College Football. I so much appreciate everybody waiting. And we do have somebody on the line. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Hello. Hello, you're on the line. I can't even go with the caller recognition because I don't know if I can trust it.
Sure.
Hello.
Mark.
Yeah, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's DeAndre.
DeAndre, what's going on? I don't know why it was not coming through, but now I got you loud and clear. How's it going?
I'm doing excellent.
Good. What's up?
What's up?
Hello, DeAndre. Can you hear me? For some reason, I'm hearing myself. What is going on?
Hey, Mark, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
But I'm glad you have fun with your son tonight. That's most important.
Well,
you got to spend precious time.
It was not anticipated, but thank you. I appreciate that. I felt horrible, but I wasn't going to say anything to him because if I would have said anything, he would have like dropped everything he was doing. He was, because he is a firm supporter of my business and is always like, go get him. So he would have like been out of here in like 30 seconds and would have taken off. So I didn't say a word to him, but I appreciate it, DeAndre.
You shouldn't have. You should bring him on the show. I'm sure he loves college football like you do.
He did at one time. He's not too interested right now, but he'll watch a little bit here and there.
Okay.
What's on your mind?
I got three questions for you. So, you know me, I'm a big bettor, and I was doing some research, and I understand why you don't like me to do parlay bets. So, you know, a guy was explaining the same thing that you explained to me about the odds. So, this cut up the year, I'm going to do my best to stay away from them. But I got a big game on my mind. Not a big game, but it's going to be a lot of points. September the 6th. Louisville versus Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to see what that number is going to be. Bobo got good offenses, and neither one of them had a good defense last year. So I'm waiting for that game. Well, I can't wait for the odds to come out on that game. I'm going to put some major money up on that one.
So they're playing in Atlanta, right?
Right.
It's a neutral site on Monday night. Ole Miss with Matt Corral coming back, Mikael Cunningham coming back for Louisville at quarterback. So both starting quarterbacks are back. As you mentioned, both were horrible on defense last year. I certainly trust who Ole Miss played, though, over who Louisville played. I'm going to guess that Ole Miss is going to be somewhere a little bit shy of a touchdown favorite. I'm going to go in the 5 or 6 point range.
Wow. That's the case. I'm definitely. Well, I was thinking about the over. What do you think the points are going to be? 70?
Yeah, something in that range. Maybe a little bit less than that, but
70 and a half.
Yeah, at least 65. Yeah, probably 70.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Now, next question. I didn't go back and watch the whole game, and I don't know who Georgia was missing off of their offensive game versus Cincinnati. Yep. But I know Pickens played.
Yes.
What's the biggest difference between Clemson and Cincinnati defense? Because I didn't really see Cincinnati play this year. So I want to know what was the biggest difference. And Georgia struggled with Cincinnati because they were missing, because Georgia was missing a whole lot of people because of the draft, or was Cincinnati really that good?
A little bit of both. So Cincinnati was actually, they had a couple guys sit out, but nothing close to Georgia. Georgia had at least something in the range of 11 or 12 players sit out.
But most of them on defense, though, right?
Most of them on defense. And of course, their secondary is going to be pretty decimated going into this game.
You see the secondary on what, Mark?
They're going to be pretty decimated. For some reason, every so often, my voice leaks into the audio. I've never heard that before, but I hear it coming through. But anyway, the Georgia secondary, they picked up the West Virginia cornerback, Tyke Smith, the second-team All-America, so that's a nice addition for them. He's more of a slot nickel corner, not an outside guy. They lose Tyreek Stevenson, who transferred to Miami. They lose 2 cornerbacks to the NFL draft in Tyson Campbell and Mark Webb. Richard LeCount was their captain on defense at safety. He's gone. If you really look at Georgia's secondary, you know that they're all highly recruited. Their recruiting rankings next to the guys are all ridiculous. But there's really nobody that's coming back outside of, can't think of his first name, Lewis Cine, Cine. He's a heavy hitter, big hitter in the defensive secondary. He's a good player, but really not a whole lot of productivity coming back to Georgia's secondary. The big difference between Clemson's defense and Cincinnati's defense is, Cincinnati's defensive line doesn't come close to Clemson's. Cincinnati, I believe, had one of those secondary players drafted, and they've got one coming back. I haven't really looked at Cincinnati, but I just remember from watching that game that they had some really good players in the secondary, but they're not going to match up to what Clemson has in the front seven, and especially across the front.
Okay. Well, yeah, because I was trying to figure out, I said it was kind of a boring game, so I couldn't watch it all the way through.
It was a boring game.
I was just trying to figure out what. Yeah, I mean, to watch it when you already know what the result is.
Well, sure.
You know the game is going to be 24. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to go back and watch the whole game when you already know what the result's going to be.
For me, it's hard to watch games that just finished. It's hard to watch, a game from last year or the year before, because it's kind of boring because you know the outcome, as opposed to watching a game from like 30 years ago where you know the outcome, but it's just interesting to see a game from 1990 because you haven't seen it in forever, from a nostalgic standpoint. It's different.
Yeah, because I wouldn't watch the choke at dope. I think that's what it was called, Florida State. Like, I was like, how did Florida State come back? I remember the game. I just didn't remember how they came back. So, yeah. So, yes, I get what you're saying. There was something else I was about to ask you about. Oh, my comment about North Carolina and Miami, who had the best talent. And I think, is it the Wholesome one? I think he said that he had, Miami had the better talent, like 6-4. And I was sitting there, and I got my first book today. Do you hear me, Mark?
I got you.
Okay, I got my first book today. It's Lindsay's book, and I'm looking at North Carolina's team today. Two starting quarterbacks should be at Clemson right now. Grimes and Michaels, and their defense returns with 10 out of 11 starters. Their offensive line is deep as heck. And I know their skill players are untested, but I think they got a pretty good tight end. They got 2 or 3 good tight ends. So I don't see what he's talking about, that Miami has a better talent. And if Derek King was anywhere close to being as good as Hal is, he would have left a long time ago. Because this is like, his 6th year playing college football. So, I mean, if he was any good, he still wouldn't be playing college football. You know what I mean? Because he would have left and took the money.
It's close.
So I'm kind of figuring out. Yeah, but I just heard his comments, and I just was like, I just don't. I really think I think this is going to be the ACC best year for football since, I think, 2017. And I know you don't like Dave Doran. When I say you don't like him, I don't think you're a fan of his coaching. Why does he still have a job? But I think NC State's going to be better. I think Boston College is going to be really good next year. Their quarterback, and they got a receiver that's pretty good. They always have a good offensive line. I think Carolina's going to be really good. Wake Forest is always decent. I mean, they're not, they ain't going to compete for a national championship, but they're always decent. I think you got a lot of good teams in the ACC coming up next year. I don't know about Virginia Tech, but Miami's going to be good. Florida State got a lot of good transfers in. They have a chance to be pretty good next year. I just think the ACC football is on uptake for the next year or two. I think Clemson fans need to be worried about that NC State game because, I know NC State, when they had Finley, Brissett, Chubb, and all them guys, Samuel and Hines, they gave Clemson some issues. And they had one of the best running backs in the country to me in that night kid. So I think NC State's on uptake along with Carolina. They're not going to get the much love as North Carolina does, but I think they're on the uptake.
Before I can answer who has the better talent, North Carolina or Miami, I'll start with this. If you just go by the recruiting rankings, Miami's got a little bit better talent than North Carolina because Miami's roster is comprised of classes that have ranked anywhere from about, I think Mark Richt had an 8th ranked class, and then the rest of the classes were in the low teens. So Miami has had a better recruiting ranking across the board that makes up the current roster compared to North Carolina. Now, I want to see North Carolina's defense play. I cannot remember the player's name. Anyway, the 10 starters back, so that's minus Chasserot, their best defensive player. And oh my goodness, I can't remember the other player that I'm trying to come up with that I heard him talking about. What's that?
His name Fox.
Well, yeah, they got Tamon Fox. It wasn't him, but anyway. Regardless, they've got a lot of talent on defense. They were pretty awful many games on defense. They gave up 53 points to Wake Forest. They gave up in the mid-40s to Virginia, but they got 10 starters back, and they're talented, so they could be much improved on defense. I think they will be. So I think North Carolina, like you say, they've got the better quarterback. And that's not to disparage De'Aaron King. He's really good, but he's not Sam Howell. North Carolina's got a much better offensive line. And even though Miami's had a better defense and Miami's had decent defenses, actually Miami's defense has been taking steps back the last couple of years, while North Carolina could make a huge jump on defense. They're running backs that are replacing Carter and Williams. I don't think that they're going to be able to replace those guys. The 3 or 4 running backs that they're looking at and that played in the spring game, none of those guys are highly. I'm sure they'll be decent backs. They'll be productive, but they're not in the league of the 2 guys that left, Javonte Williams and Michael Carter. The receivers, I think they'll be fine, even though they lose their 2 best. I think the guys that replace them, they showed in the bowl game against Texas A&M that they can play. So off the top of my head, I would say that North Carolina is slightly, I don't know if more talented is the word, because again, Miami's got the better recruiting rankings, but I just think they're a better team. Not by much, but they're better. Until I see otherwise, they're better.
Right. Yeah, and they got a week. I don't want to say a week schedule, but they got Virginia Tech to start the season off, which should be a win. I know Georgia State went to Tennessee and won last year, but that should be a win. They got Virginia at home. That should be a win. Georgia Tech still translating over from the triple option, so they might be better next year. They got Duke, Florida State, and Miami. So, I mean, I could see them to that Miami game, them being undefeated, and Miami only having 1 loss, and that's to Alabama, of course. But my thing about Miami got to worry about App State. The App State, even if they don't win the game, they give you a scare. And I don't. You coming out of playing a physical Alabama team, you go to an App State, and App State has a tendency to shock people. So will it be a hangover against Alabama, or will you be beat up or something like that? So you got to really worry about something like that. Because we saw what happened to Florida State after they played Alabama with DeAndre Francois, and he got beat up and hurt, and they just wasn't the same after that.
Miami has one of the tougher non-conference schedules.
Right.
With Michigan State
and I agree
included.
With that. Right. I mean, and, I know Michigan State, they beat Michigan last year. I mean, like I said, the COVID just messed up everything, so it's kind of hard to see what this guy did that went from Colorado to Michigan State. But that's a pretty hard schedule right there. And, like I said, he's coming off of Alabama playing App State, who has a history of beating those teams. And so Miami has a tendency to do a letdown too. So they could be looking at 0-2 if they're not ready for the next week. They'll let Alabama, what they say, beat you twice. And that could be a situation that they run into. So I was looking at their schedule, but I can't remember the guy that covers South Carolina football. I can't remember his name. Carolina Jackpot. I don't know if you ever talked to him, but I'll follow his show. He was saying Darian Kendrick had transferred over to Georgia. Have you heard that?
Their kicker?
No, Darian Kendrick, the cornerback.
Oh, Darian Kendrick. Oh, the Clemson. Well, that's the rumor that I keep hearing from various people is that, and I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know if it's legitimate, substantial, but I keep hearing from people as well that he's ticketed to Georgia. Now, there could be a little flip in the game. That could be a little boost for Georgia, considering their problems in the secondary.
Well, let me ask you this. And don't get me wrong, Ohio State's really, really talented. But if you looked at that game, against Ohio State, and also you go to the Boston College game. Derrick Kendrick got beat a lot. I know his first team ACC. I don't know, they just didn't have much choice because he did play against Wake Forest. He played half a game against the Citadel. So, the Citadel game, he didn't throw the ball a whole lot. But Derrick Kendrick had a lot of trouble against talented receivers because Ohio State lit him up. And I don't know if you've heard Tony Elliott's press conference, but Tony Elliott has said what I said a couple of weeks ago, if you remember, that this might be Clemson's most talented receiver group as far as the number of talented people. I know that when Watkins was there, they had Watkins, Hopkins, Humphreys, and Bryan. All four of them are NFL players because they're still playing in the NFL now. But this group is pretty much on that level, that talented group. So, I'm not saying that Kendrick's a bad player, but I don't know about the matchup. Even if they go get him, I would be kind of worried about that if I was Georgia. I don't even know why he would go there. I would have went to UNC Charlotte and just showed out over there for a year. Everybody know what you can do, but I don't think it's a big pickup for him because the way he played against Ohio State, and it's his head right because he had a lot of issues, legal issues, because he had that gun and the car and stuff, and it was allegedly that he was smoking marijuana. That's one of the reasons why Dabo got rid of him. But and then they might pick up the guy from LSU, the tight end, and that might be another game changer right there if these guys are eligible to play right away. Because the guy from LSU, I heard he was having some issues with his grades. I think I was listening to on your talk show that they said that he might have some issues with his grades, but I don't know if I would want him on my team, but Kirby's going to do whatever he can to win and get that advantage over Alabama. Alabama. So I'll let you go, Mark, but I got one more thing for you. LSU is a positive 2,800 favorite to win the SEC. Of course, Alabama is the favorite. You think that's a smart bet by putting some money on LSU, maybe $25?
You said plus 800?
2,800, yeah.
2,800 plus 2,800.
Yeah. Right. I apologize.
So $100 bet's going to net you $2,800.
I think I might take that.
Is that what you just said? You said, well, if you said 2,800, that's what that means is $100 bet is going to net you 2,800. So if you put down 25, that's whatever, 28 divided by 4, that's a $700 gain on a $25 bet. I doubt if it's that high, is it? That seems high.
I checked, what is it called? Season books, and that's what I saw the last time I looked at it. It was 2,800. I might be wrong. Maybe I looked at it wrong, but that's what I saw last time. But if you look at the divisions that they're in, you got Texas A&M, Alabama. I don't know who they cross over. They cross over games with Florida, right? I don't know who else they play in the SEC this year, but that's pretty tough, though. Okay. And then you might have Georgia in the SEC championship game. I don't know, but we'll talk about it again. So I'll let you know. But all right, Mark.
All right, DeAndre. Appreciate the call. Have a good night.
All right, bye. You too.
So what I'm looking at is coming in from, let me get this source straight. I can't find the source. I just Googled it. SEC championship game, SEC championship odds, DraftKings. This is coming in from DraftKings. So you've got at the top of the board, Alabama's plus 100, which is an even bet. You bet 100, you win 100. If Alabama, they're even money to win the SEC. Georgia plus 250. So you bet 100, you win 250. And that means you get the 100 back plus the 250. So you net a $250 gain. Texas A&M plus 700. LSU at plus 1,000. So DeAndre said plus 2,800. That seemed a bit heavy. I'm looking at, according to DraftKings, LSU at a plus 1,000. So if you put down 100, you win 1,000. That's 10-1. If you put down 25, you win 250. That's what you want to do with your money? Sure. For DeAndre and anybody else who bets parlays, you need to keep track of them. If you think you're doing well in parlays and you get wowed by the big payoff, which is usually some ridiculous payoff, just keep track. Just keep track. That's what you need to do for anybody who does more than just a recreational wager once in a while. This is all I ask you to do. Be responsible and keep track. All right. Calls coming in here at the Voice of College Football. I believe we've got David Greenshield on the line. David, how are we doing tonight?
The man that gives college football its voice, Mark Rogers. Hi, and how are you, sir?
I'm great. How you doing tonight? I saw a lot of, I don't know if you heard the top of the show, but made my way through a lot of Cleveland Indians cards from the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. So a lot of familiar faces and names for you.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that. One of my biggest things as a child growing up was just, like you were talking about earlier, collecting baseball and football cards.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I would go to card shows and things like that, and I would collect them, and I would buy sets and, packs of cards and things of that nature. I still have a lot of my cards, to be perfectly honest with you. I never went and got them graded, which is like the big thing to do. You have to send them away and get, like a 9 or a 10 or something like that. Which, if you're going to get a 9 or a 10, you better hope the card's coming straight out of the pack, because, it's got to be, really mint conditioned to get that kind of a grade. So, I still have a lot of stuff. I actually, speaking of an Indians player, I have Joe Carter's rookie card.
Okay.
One of my all-time favorite Indians players.
Very cool. Yeah, mine would not grade out well. Not because I beat them up. I wanted to keep my cards nice, but I still looked at them on occasion, and I liked to shuffle through and look at them, of course, and I used them. I looked at them, but I kept them nice, but they wouldn't grade out very high. My son was going through trying to find cards that would be worth quite a bit of money or something. He came up with a LeBron James card that he has, or they're actually at this point, at some point, he kind of got over cards. He was big into baseball cards more than anything else, more than football or basketball, but he had some of those, but mostly baseball. And at some point, he might have hit maybe 15, 16 years old, and he was just kind of done with it. And I gave him like $100 for all the cards he had, just to add to my collection. Wow. So they're technically all mine, but I told him, I said, if you do the legwork, you find people to buy these cards, we'll split. I don't do anything. You do everything. We'll split. He found a LeBron James card that's worth $23, and it was mint. Like you say, the new terminology is this grading that they have, but back in the old day, we would say it's mint condition or whatever. But it was in a sleeve, not a sleeve, but one of those hard, firm plastic, laminated type coverings. So that was the most pricey one that we came across. We didn't even come close to going through all of them, but we had a good time going through those. And I more than anything, he was looking them up. I just wanted to see the cards and the players, and then it gets me thinking about statistics, and I'm going online looking guys up. Because it still bothers me to a certain extent that Kenny Lofton gets next to no consideration for the Hall of Fame.
Yes, honestly, if you go back and you take a look at that 1995 Cleveland Indians lineup, Mark,
you
could probably make the case you could have 6 or 7 Hall of Famers within that lineup when you break it down. I mean, if Manny Ramirez, he had his problems with certain, substances that probably cost him. Jim Tomei made the Hall of Fame. Kenny Lofton should get consideration. Now, Eddie Murray is in the Hall of Fame. And I'm trying to think who else was in that lineup that I'm missing. Carlos Baerga was a really good player, but probably not a Hall of Fame player. Yeah, I mean, Albert Bell, of course, was the star player at that particular period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we would both say probably not a Hall of Fame player, right?
Well, that's funny. This is the funny thing about baseball, and I'm going to turn this, I guess, into a baseball show for a couple minutes. But the thing that bothers me about baseball Hall of Fame credentials and perceived credentials is, let's say I'm looking at Kenny Lofton. He hit, I'm going to nudge him up a point. I'm going to round him up to 300 career. It bothers me that he's at 299. So 300 career hitter, something like 12th all-time in stolen bases. He's the all-time stolen base leader in postseason play. He won 5 Gold Gloves and 5 stolen base titles. But if you look at his hit total, think about this, David. What really matters in the player evaluation? 2,400 hits, 2,428. Okay. If he just sticks around for 3 years, 4 years, and gets and hits 250, 260, and gets his 140 hits a year, he gets to 3,000. We know that that's the magic number, 3,000. He's automatic. Well, did that 4 years of playing marginal baseball and being a shell of himself, does that make him a Hall of Famer? Just sticking around compiling hits versus the player that he was from 1990, really 1993, 92, 93. Well, another thing, he should have won the Rookie of the Year in 92. Pat Listash should not have won the Rookie of the Year. So he should have a Rookie of the Year in 92. He had better numbers.
Right.
92
and
through, the player that he was from 92 to 07 for the player he was from about 92 to 98, 99 for about 6 or 7 years was dominant. And then really the player he was for 15 years was either dominant to really good. Why does it matter if you hang around and you're a shell of yourself just to pick up 400, 500 hits? I don't understand that.
Well, you have that with a lot of players that stick around to amass numbers. I mean, I love Jim Tomei, but, he never was necessarily per se dominant. He just amassed a lot of numbers over a long period of time. And he got to a magic number, though. He got to 600 home runs. By the way, another bad thing for the Indians, Albert Bell to this day deserves the MVP over Mo Vaughn in 1995. Yes. And that's not even close.
It's not close. It's not close.
Yes. And that's
they both knocked in the same number of runs. Bell hit 50 home runs. Vaughn hit 39. He out-homered him by 11 home runs, and he hit something like 25 points higher. It wasn't close.
Right. Yeah, 50 home runs and 50 doubles that year, Mark, which is
in a short season.
History making at that. Yeah, with the strike. Yeah,
he only played 144 games that year.
Well, let's get to college football.
I'm probably annoying a lot of people.
Let's do. You know what? I wanted to start with something. Your friend. By the way, you did lines on games this season, right? You did a segment, or I believe a spot on that. Is that correct?
I'm sorry. On what?
On lines, like early season lines on particular games.
Yeah, actually, more than the game ones. Whatever games were released, I got to as many as possible. Yes.
Okay. Did you say that the line of the Ohio State-Michigan game was 10 points?
So that information came out the day of the Ohio State live show. And actually, Kevin Noon was the person who said to me, actually, we were in the middle of the show, and he chatted to me in the DM, sent me a link to basically say, we can talk about this. And they were the ones who brought it up. And the first listing I saw was 10. And that was the listing that Kevin brought up. He was the first one to mention it, 10 points. He said, if I made some kind of comment, like if I had a Brinks truck, I would, drive to Vegas kind of thing, 10 points. Now I saw 11 and a half is the number I saw.
Okay. If I could bet that line, no, I'm with Noon on the Brinks truck line.
I agree.
just want to say that if I could bet that today all day,
yep,
I would take it and run with it.
I would too.
To me, that's feeling right now. But obviously, things are going to change. Seasons evolve. I get that. So, I think that's going to be interesting to see how that line moves over the course of the season. But yeah, but it says a lot for that line to be where it's at coming into the season. They're already going to start it out in double digits, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I don't know how those lines have changed through the years and what Vegas, there has to be a strategy that they're using to get those lines out to not be taken advantage of during the off season. You know what I mean? First of all, I'm guessing that there's not a whole lot of action, but they want to create something. They want to create some level of activity, and they certainly know what they're doing. But I would take the Buckeyes and lay the 10. Absolutely. LSU is only a 3-point favorite against UCLA. That jumped out at me as well. I know it's on the road, but it jumped out at me.
That should be easy cash, I would think. Like I told you, I like LSU with that 8.5 win total over this year. I think Orgeron has to have a bounce back year this year. I'm not saying that he's not built up equity. I mean, obviously, you win a national title, you've got some equity there. But you think after last year's down season, this could be a bounce back season. And I think their schedule lines up to where they're at least a 9-win team this year.
Did you see my win totals?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I did not.
I posted a video a few days ago. I went through my selections. Trying to think what those are. So what jumped out at me? So I basically went through the video in going through the teams and the numbers that jumped out at me, and then I made a determination. So I threw a couple out that I thought I was going to make a move on. One was Illinois is only 3. And I thought, my goodness, they never play a good non-conference schedule. So I thought they're going to win 2 non-conference games out of 3. They've got to, because it's usually, an FCS, a MAC school, and somebody okay, and they win 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3. So I thought they're only at 3. Can't they go 1-8 or 2-7 in the Big Ten? But once I looked at it, they're playing Charlotte. They should win, but it's not necessarily a cakewalk. They're playing Texas San Antonio. They should win, but again, it's Illinois. They've lost to MAC schools on a fairly regular basis, probably 25 or 30% of the time. And their other non-conference game is on the road at Virginia. So that's probably a loss.
Okay.
And then, so I pulled back once I looked at the conference schedule because they're probably the worst team in the division. And their easiest game on the Eastern Division side was a game against Rutgers, which no longer is a gimme. So I kind of backed off on that one. The ones that I landed on, still, despite a very difficult schedule, Stanford at 3.5. I just have to think that they're going to win 4 games.
No, you got me on that one, Mark. That's the one that when you mentioned 3, and I look at the Pac-12 and I look at their they still have, I guess they have Notre Dame in non-conference, right?
Notre Dame, Kansas State, Vanderbilt. They don't play anybody that's just a gimme, but they should beat Vanderbilt. So, Kansas State's a game. It's got to be a 3-point game. It's going to be a toss-up. It's a neutral site game, and Notre Dame. And then if you go through the Pac-12, all the games are just, it's Stanford. They're you don't look at hardly any of the games and say they're going to win or they're going to lose. You know, it's
Right.
there's just a lineup of toss-ups.
Well, you know what? I looked at it, Mark. They over the last, since 2010, I believe they've had, 6 or 7 10-win seasons in the last, 10 to 12 years. And this was, I mean, in 2019, I think that was, they had a down year in 2019. I do believe they won 9 games in 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So I guess maybe they're thinking that the trajectory of the program might be heading in a certain direction there. But, with the history, and I like David Shaw as a coach, plus I don't think that the Pac-12 is an overly difficult schedule. Yes, Notre Dame's a difficult opponent, but Kansas, Vanderbilt is not, hardly, top 10 opponents. Let's just be real here. So, yeah, I mean, 4 wins has to be totally realistic, I would think.
Yeah, so I was a fan of that one. When I saw Colorado at 4.5, I went into that review thinking, well, they're coming off a 4-2 season. They're at 4.5. They were kind of a feel-good team from last year. They like Illinois. When does Colorado ever play anybody out of conference? They always play Colorado State, and then they play a light non-conference schedule. But you know who they've got this year? Okay, they've got one give-me win out of the gate, but then they've got Texas A&M and Minnesota. So I thought, wow, they scheduled up this year. And then once I went through the schedule, I'm looking at 4 wins for Colorado. I'm taking the under with Colorado. I like the over with Stanford.
Yeah,
and then I looked at UCLA. Go ahead.
UCLA. No, I was thinking about Penn State and that under of 9 too, by the way, Mark.
Yeah. I guess I'm not extremely confident one way or the other with them at 9. That could be a push, of course. UCLA sitting at 7. So I had an issue with UCLA just thinking, really, this team's going to go 8-4? You're going to lose only if they go 8-4. And they've gone 3-9 and 4-8. And then 3-4 under Chip Kelly, and they're suddenly going to go 8-4 with LSU in non-conference play. I look through their schedule and I'm thinking they're going 6-6 tops. Even if they go 7-5, I push and get my money back. So I took the under on UCLA at 7. And then the other play was the one we discussed last week, David. Kentucky. I was very comfortable with over 6.5 because they should go 4-0 non-conference and at the worst 3-1.
Yeah, I think they're your Kentucky team right now, Mark. By the way,
they are. I love Kentucky.
There you go. I think they're at least an 8-4 football team. I would say. I mean, at worst 7-5, but even if they go 7-5, you still cover. So. Hey, Mark, I wanted to say something. Kevin calls in and has given his all-time teams for each team.
Yes.
Can I try? I'm going to try Ohio State here.
Sure.
And what I think. He did his, so I'm going to give you mine. I'll start off with Troy Smith at quarterback, Ezekiel Elliott, and gosh, I wish I could do 3 running backs and go Archie Griffith and Eddie George. But those would be my backs. David Boston and Chris Carter would be my wide receivers. Jim Parker and Orlando Pace would be my offensive tackles. Nick Mangold would be my center, although it's a close call with Charles Bentley. And I'm thinking about guards, and I'm trying to come up with some names. I think Bill Willis. The late Bill Willis was an offensive lineman, but I don't know if he played guard, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe Willis was a guard. I don't know about Jim Stillwagon. Keep going.
Well, My defensive line would be Chase Young and Nick Bosa and Big Daddy Dan Wilkinson and Jim Stillwagon. My linebackers would be Chris Spielman, Randy Gradishar, and Tom Cousineau. A close call for Andy Katzenmoyer. And then my defensive backfield would be Mike Doss, Jack Tatum, Antoine Winfield, and Malcolm Jenkins. What do you think?
Well, I think that there could be great debates in a number of areas, but I don't see any misses. I don't see any glaring misses on your part by any stretch.
I mean, it was close on the defensive line. The secondary defensive line and linebackers were all very close. Andy Katzenmoyer, I think, is, along with Chris Spielman, one of the 2 or 3 greatest linebackers I've ever seen at Ohio State. Gradishar and Cousineau are just all-time good. You probably remember Cousineau better than I do, right, Mark?
I know that I watched him play, but I wasn't exactly locked in on Tom Cousineau's ability. I watched him play. I had the games on when I was 8 years old watching him play, but that would have been right at the end of his, 1978 would have been his final season. So yeah, I barely caught him.
Okay. Yeah, because that's probably right. Like, Spielman was right when I first started watching Ohio State football. And then, but I think he's an obvious choice. And then I think, after that, it's either maybe would Katzenmoyer be on your list, Mark? Or would A.J. Hawk maybe? Or what do you think?
I would go at linebacker. Again, we're starting to delve into some people that we can't necessarily speak to, having seen them in person or seen them play, Gradishar and Cousineau. So those are 2 guys that really neither one of us have seen play. Again, I had the games on. I saw him play a little bit, but right at the tail end of his stay at Ohio State, and I'm going to question my evaluation skills at the age of 8. So A.J. Hawk, yes. Pepper Johnson, I would give some consideration to. Spielman definitely makes my team. Laurinaitis gets consideration. He was a 3-time All-American.
I would take A.J. Hawk over James Laurinaitis. I've said that for years. I think A.J. Hawk was a better player than James Laurinaitis.
I think A.J. Hawk was a more disruptive player. I think he was faster, and I think he made more disruptive plays behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, that was kind of close for me. Defensive line was close, but I think Big Daddy Dan Wilkinson, Stillwagon's a college football Hall of Famer and a dominant player from what I've read. And then Chase Young and Bosa. Close call with Mike Vrabel, who was really, really good for Ohio State for a couple years at defensive end, wouldn't you say?
Sure. He's the first guy that comes to mind after those really 3 players with the 2 Bosas and Chase Young. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm not thinking of anyone else. Alonzo Spellman wasn't in that category. Yeah, I'm good with your team. I'm going to keep going here, David.
Yeah. All right, Mark. Well, as always, it's a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take care.
I believe we are talking more Ohio State football right here, if I'm reading the message correctly. Welcome to the Voice of College Football.
Hey, Mark, it's Rod. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Rod. I'm doing well. What's going on?
Good. Oh, been kind of MIA a little bit with work and coaching and everything. So good to be back. Good to hear from you. So wanted to get your thoughts on something that came out in the news for Ohio State earlier this week. And sorry if this has already been discussed, but I don't know if you saw that the AD and the president released their text messages through their communication for last season when the season was originally shut down for COVID. and the president and the AD had discussed the possibility of Ohio State going independent since they felt, the season looked to be ended. So I was just kind of getting your thoughts. How would that have worked? Who would they have played? Would it have been mostly Power 5 teams? How many games would they have played? And even if they did pick Power 5, would they have had a strong enough schedule? Because let's just assume they would have gone undefeated, say, if they played 8, 10, 12 games. How would the playoff committee would voted them in? How do you think that would have worked if they would have gone independent last season?
All right. Well, we have to take into consideration. So I did see those text messages, and I read through a couple articles. So we got to consider the timing of the situation. So the Big Ten's out, obviously, and so then Ohio State's looking for opponents. Well, at that point, the SEC had determined that they were playing only themselves and only going to play a conference schedule. So I'm doubting that the SEC, unless they were looking at this as an opportunity just for cachet, for money, for gate, for attention, promotion of the sport, to say, hey, we'll let our teams play Ohio State if they want to play them. But they had made a rule that they weren't going out to play non-conference games based on their safety concerns, that they were going to keep all their conditions in-house. So the SEC played no non-conference games. So unless they were going to go, and it would be a difficult message to deliver, that they were going to go out there and just play Ohio State. So the SEC's out. Well, the ACC at that point had already scheduled non-conference games against group of 5 teams. So the ACC played no non-conference games against the Power 5 because they had nobody to play at that point. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 were out, and the SEC had decided not to play non-conference games. So the ACC was only playing one non-conference game, and those were all group of 5 teams. So I guess Ohio State would have been put in the position of trying to schedule games against group of 5 and the Pac-12. And at that point, of course, the Big Ten was even ahead of the Pac-12 in coming back to play. So at that point, it looked even more so, as you know, that the Pac-12 situation was dead. So
right.
I don't know if it would.
I don't see the Pac-12 letting them play.
Well, the Pac-12.
I don't see the Pac-12. Yeah.
Once the Pac-12 decided to play, they were pretty open to playing outside the conference, though.
I don't know. Maybe. There have been a lot of mixed reviews. It's hard to get any grasp on the thinking of, those Pac-12 presidents and the commissioner, former commissioner now. I would have been open to it. I would have played Mount Union at this point. I just wanted them to play last year. But like you said, you could have said it better, though. The timing was everything. I think I don't know. I kind of have a feeling maybe the ACC would have maybe tried to, some of these teams would have tried to pull some strings to get maybe like an extra game to play Ohio State, since the fact that it is Ohio State. That is obviously a moneymaker, TV ratings generator, and everything like that. But at the same time, though, even if they were stuck playing group of 5 teams, and say, let's assume they go 10-0, 12-0. Do you think even then the committee would put them in? Granted, it is Ohio State, but since they didn't play anybody, how do you think that would have worked?
So let's say it was Ohio State playing a 10-game season against group of 5 teams, and they went 10-0. Well, we had Coastal Carolina and BYU. Of course, they played, and Coastal Carolina won the game. But while BYU was headed toward, at that point, an undefeated season, and this was BYU, and they had a fairly close game against Houston. They blew out just about everybody. Right. They might have had one other game that was fairly close, but they played a pretty awful schedule, and they had people in their corner fighting for them to. And I don't know where BYU, I don't remember how high they ascended in the rankings. Weren't they in the 10 or 11 range, something like that? I think Ohio State would have gotten a lot of consideration. Now, if they would have won most of those games 31-24, that would not have been the case. But if they were winning those games by 4 touchdowns, I would think that they would have gotten some consideration, but they would have had to play a full schedule. They weren't going to get by with a 6-0 record like they did in the Big Ten if they would have been a bunch of MAC games and Conference USA games. That's for sure.
Yeah, the MAC didn't play at all, correct?
Well, yeah, and you would think, or Mountain West, but you would think that they would have needed to squeeze out one game against a quality opponent, get somebody from the ACC to play them to be able to show one game.
Right. So, my last question on this topic then would be, let's say in some random scenario, Ohio State was able to play SEC teams, Big 12 teams, maybe even Notre Dame, ACC, and so on, and it ended up being a big success. They make the playoffs and everything like that. Do you think Ohio State would have maybe remained independent, or at least flirt with the idea of being independent long term? Or do you think they're pretty committed to the conference?
I think Ohio State's committed to the conference, and I think if Ohio State was anybody else, that the Big Ten would have had a huge vendetta against them going out and making the conference look bad by completing a football season when the conference was initially committed to shutting down the season. But Ohio State being Ohio State and bringing as much attention and cachet and money to the conference, that all would have been forgiven because it was Ohio State. The Big Ten seemed to be pretty sore at Nebraska being as garish and forthright as they were about breaking off and playing its own schedule. But Nebraska, with all due respect, just isn't even though they're still a power brand, not on the field, but in other ways, they still don't bring to the conference what Ohio State does. So the Big Ten would have been in an interesting situation there. The Big Ten would have really been in an interesting situation had two teams, let's say Ohio State and Nebraska, broken off and done their own thing, because they would have had to treat them the same and open and welcome them back with open arms, even though they seem to be a bit sore about Nebraska, contemplating a season without them.
So Ohio State and Nebraska wouldn't have needed permission from the Big Ten to go independent just for a year. They could have just done it, correct?
I think they would have needed permission.
Okay.
I absolutely do. Okay. There were a number of articles out at the time that cited rules, because that was the big holdback, because like you say, Ohio State was not public about that was leaked out in various ways, or maybe there was just strong speculation and people just had an idea of what Ohio State was probably thinking, versus Nebraska just coming out and saying, we want to play football. We're looking for opponents. And the Big Ten made some type of statement about citing the bylaws of the conference that Nebraska could not do that.
Okay, I don't know how that works. I mean, it would have been. I think it would have put the Big Ten in a really bad position. Already looking bad in your commission and everything. But I tell you, who really looked bad was the Michigan president. You got just another thing that kind of separates Ohio State and Michigan is how Michigan just came off not wanting to play at all, the president, whereas there's evidence now of Ohio State's president doing everything that she can or could to get a season, and she was willing to leave the conference. She was willing to play anybody, do anything to get, games in, because she knew the importance, not just, to the people trying to get a feel of normalcy, but she knows, money generated from the football and the athletics helps the university. And I've seen what you and Steve Dace talked about. Michigan lost, what was it, like $80 million last year? Was that correct? It was like $80 million they're in the hole now? Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a giant, I mean, I don't know how else really to describe it, but I think that's just one thing that just increases the gap between both universities in terms of their commitment and what's really become of the program at Michigan, and just what an absolute mess it is, and what everything else that's just going on. So yeah, all right, Mark, I won't spend on. I'll let you get going. Really good to hear from you. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that situation, and I'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you jumping on, Rod. Have a good night.
All right.
As I said at the time, in a number of ways, the dilemma from the Big Ten, and I'm going to get to this call in just a second. We appreciate you holding on. That the dilemma that we saw on public display in the Big Ten showed us the disconnect between the elites in the Big Ten, the administrators and the academia, and the common folk in the Big Ten. And it was intriguing to see. The Pac-12, they were united that this pandemic's awful. It's terrorizing the West Coast. We're not playing until we can completely guarantee safety. That was the furthest thing from their minds. They were in full harmony together. There was no controversy. We're not playing. The Big 12 seemed to kind of go with the SEC and the ACC, and the SEC and the ACC seem to be together and reflect the populace of those states to say, we're going to go through the guidelines, we're going to test, we're going to have protocols that are going to ensure safety as much as we possibly can, but we're committed to playing football. And certainly there were games canceled throughout both the SEC and the ACC seasons, but the SEC and the ACC were in tandem. They were together. Football was a priority. We're going to do it safely. We're going to test. We're going to have protocols. We're going to do all the right things, but we are playing football. That's our intent. The Big 12 then followed with that. In the Big 10, you saw this interesting gap, this disconnect between academia that didn't care about football, administrators, and academic people, and then the players, the coaches, the fan base, the alma mater, the alumni. And you saw a fight. The Big Ten, that was the only conference. There was a fight. All right, before we take this call, I want to answer Phil's question here. Mark, who wins a natty first between Florida State, Miami, and Florida? I think Mullen is going to go pro before he does anything. I don't think Manny has a high ceiling. He's Temple's coach. Norvell can recruit. Well, Phil B., of course, you're going to say that. I understand that, and that's not a knock. You're a Florida State guy. Florida State right now is the worst team and the worst program, but see, none of the three are capable right now of winning a national championship. Florida had a team last year that would have had a puncher's chance in a playoff, an expanded playoff, as we saw against Alabama in particular, of winning a national championship, but they would not have won one. So between Florida State, Miami, and Florida, I just think that they're all so far away at this point. And I understand the Dan Mullen NFL aspirations, possibly, that he's keeping somewhat under wraps. At the same time, what NFL team is going to hire Dan Mullen to be the head coach? That's what I would like to know. If I'm an NFL general manager or owner, there are plenty of options other than Dan Mullen that are more secure and make more sense. So I don't know if Dan Mullen's going to be going on to the NFL. Not because he doesn't want to, but because who's going to make that move for Dan Mullen? I just don't see that out of an NFL team, and I might be wrong, because I wouldn't make that move. So out of those three, if you look at the conference and if you look at Yeah, I think that Miami would be the first one to win a national championship, even though that seems so far out of the realm of possibility right now. Miami's in the best position when you look at coaching staff, recruiting, and the current team on the field, all of it at this point. But none of them are within firing distance. All right, let's get to our next call. And welcome to the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you holding.
Hey, Mark, it's McD Sports Boy. How you doing?
McD, what's going on, man?
I'm doing good. A few notes on a previous callers before I want to get into what I want to talk about. The whole Dan Mullen saga thing. I think that was only brought up because with the NFL, because I think the New York Jets, were interested in him this previous offseason. But I agree with you. I don't see anybody hiring Dan Mullen in the NFL. But I think that's really the only reason why NFL aspirations are getting were even brought up, because I think the Jets were kind of interested in him.
Yeah, I know that was the case at the time, but just he's got a lot to show an NFL team after the way he acted last season.
I agree. And one other quick point to piggyback on, you know that the Michigan president has, since he's been there in 2014, has not even been in the football facility area.
Run that by me again. Michigan is not what?
The Michigan president has never visited the football team or anything since he's been there in 2014.
Yes, that's what I understand.
So that tells you where his priorities lie.
Yeah, that's awful.
I agree with
regardless of where his priorities lie, even if it's the art department, he needs to make his way to every part of campus and visit every department just to show some level of support and that he's interested and knows what's going on. Plus, he's obviously just completely oblivious to the way, and I hate to use this term when it comes to academics, but he's oblivious to the way the business is run, the way the operation works. You know, that football program is, in Michigan's an outstanding school, as we all know, but we know that more people know Michigan for football than anything else. And even if you don't like football, if you don't understand that and use that to your advantage, then you're basically a moron.
Exactly. I mean, if you're a president of Blue Blood, you got to at least act like you care, in my opinion. And Michigan is one of the so-called Blue Bloods. But anyways, Mark, the reason why I'm calling you is because I want to get your opinion on some of these lines that came out, I think, this past weekend or whatever. Some more lines came out with the previous lines.
Okay.
So the line came out from Nebraska and Illinois in week 0. Illinois plus 9.5.
It's too high.
I don't know if I will bet it or not, though.
Oh, I'm not saying I would bet it, but if you're asking me to make a call, Illinois beat them by 13 points last year, and that doesn't mean necessarily that's going to reflect on what's going to happen this year. I do believe the game's at Nebraska. That has a lot to do with it. Oh, it's in Champaign. Oh, okay. Well, then I feel a lot better. Because that's a pretty huge swing, because Nebraska's got a decent home field advantage. Not necessarily Illinois. Does it matter? Illinois is one of those places it really doesn't matter if they're playing at home or where they're playing. But the disadvantage of playing at Nebraska means something. So I'm even more confident in saying I would take, if I had to make a prediction right now, I'm taking Illinois and 9.5 points.
Okay. Western Michigan plus 17.5 against Michigan in the Big House.
Western Michigan. Well, first of all, I've got to do my homework on distinguishing Western, Eastern, and Central Michigan. I'm not real strong on some of the group of 5 schools. Western Michigan, I think they went like 4-1. I don't remember. Anyway, if I remember right, they were the better of the 3 last year. I'd have to look that up. I'd have to do a little homework, but I'm generally going to think Michigan should be able to cover that.
I agree. There's no excuse for Michigan not to beat Western Michigan by at least 3 touchdowns, in my opinion. How about Oregon State plus 5.5 against Purdue in West Lafayette?
That's a pretty good line, but I'm going to take Purdue to cover at home.
Okay. I would stay away from that one personally.
Well, I would stay away. Yes, I'm just trying to make a call for you.
I know. How about Michigan State plus 6.5 on the road against Northwestern?
Northwestern doesn't score much. I'm still going to take Northwestern to cover against Michigan State at home.
Okay. How about Utah versus BYU? BYU plus 7.5 at home.
Oh, I'm going to take BYU.
I agree.
With those points, yeah. If you drop it a point and make it under a touchdown, then I have to start to think a little bit. But that's a key place to bet a game. That transition from 6.5 to 7 to 7.5, and they're at home. I'll take the underdog at home.
I agree. A few more. Purdue on the road against Notre Dame. Purdue plus 11.5.
What week is that game?
Week 3. Yeah, week 3.
Okay. Well, of course, we're going to have a couple games to go on by then, but I would take the 11.5.
Okay. How about Michigan State plus 17.5 against Miami? In Miami.
I'll take Michigan State. Give me those points. Miami typically plays down.
Okay. How about
just look at Miami's games week to week against everybody they played in the ACC that was of Michigan State's caliber.
How about Virginia Tech plus 5.5 at home against Notre Dame?
I'll take Notre Dame to win that game. They played at Virginia Tech just a couple of years ago, and they annihilated them in Blacksburg. I don't think Blacksburg is the place that it used to be. Virginia Tech's pretty bad. I'll take Notre Dame. They're a really good team. It's only 5.5 points. Yeah, they're going to win that game by. Did you say 5.5 points?
Yeah, I said Virginia Tech plus 5.5. I'm jumping all over Notre Dame.
Yeah, and Notre Dame wins that by a couple scores. That
I have Virginia Tech not make a bowl game.
That game's 34-17.
Okay, and I'm going to give you one more. This is a group of 5 game. UCF versus Cincinnati in Cincinnati. Cincinnati's minus 10.5.
Ooh. UCF with a new head coach, but it is Gus Malzahn, who I've got some level of respect for.
That's why I'm giving it to you.
Yeah, I'm going to take the points, but reluctantly. That would be the last game I would take out of all those games. I think that would be the last one.
I'm high on UCF this year. I think UCF. I don't know if they're gonna. I don't think they'll win the American at the end, but it won't surprise me if they're competing. I think the American doesn't do divisions anymore because UConn left. But I think UCF could be in a championship game.
Western Michigan, by the way, went 4-2 last year. They lost to Ball State by a field goal. They lost to Eastern Michigan by 11 points. You know, they should be losing to Michigan by 18.
that second loss to Eastern Michigan by 11 is terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this. Eastern Michigan's the worst out of all three of them.
Yes. Well, you're getting me excited thinking about those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Did you look at the over-unders? I was looking at some over-unders, and I felt pretty good about 4 of them I posted.
I did look at them. I agree. I agree with your Colorado one. And where were your other ones again?
I
think you said Illinois.
I went. I let Illinois go. I thought I was going to play Illinois. They caught my eye, but then I let it go. And I thought I was going to play somebody. I brought up Kansas just because I thought it was interesting that Kansas is at 1. That amazes me that somebody can be that bad.
Let me tell you this about Kansas.
Yep.
Continue. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that it's just amazing that nobody else was even close to 1, and Kansas is at 1. And you just figure a Power 5 team's got to be playing out of conference games against Group of 5 or FCS teams. Well, Kansas is playing Duke on the road, Coastal Carolina on the road. Then they're playing South Dakota. So if you've got some level of confidence that they can win game 1 against South Dakota at home, then you've already got your push, and then you're just hoping that they can, maybe beat Texas Tech or Baylor or somebody, maybe, but you at least get your push. If I would do some big research on South Dakota, is what I would do, is to figure out if Kansas is definitely going to win that game.
I will say this about Kansas. They hired Lance Leapoyd out of Buffalo as a new head coach after the whole Les Miles saga. That's a really good hire, but it's going to be a while before they start winning. Like anything. To be honest, I don't even know if they're going to be South Dakota.
You're telling us in the chat here, I see, McD, that Florida State's going to win 7 or 8 games?
Yep. Yeah, I'm thinking big year for Florida State. They're bringing in a bunch of transfers. I look at that schedule. I think they can get to 7 or 8. I really do.
You know that they've got 5 games against Notre Dame, Florida, Miami, North Carolina, Clemson.
I think they're being Notre Dame week 1 and the upset Sunday night. I think they will. And I think they have a good shot against Miami. I don't think Miami is as good as people think they are.
Okay, so they're going to win 2 out of those 5. Well, if they win 2 out of those 5, then they're off and running, and you're right. They will get to 8 because those are by far the 5 toughest teams that they're playing.
I agree with you. I don't think there's no way they beat Clemson. Florida, if it's in Tallahassee, they have a punch a shot. And Rosie have a tough game. North Carolina. If they beat North Carolina last year.
Yeah, they're not going to beat them again. So
I don't think they will either.
The Florida State got a tough deal with the ACC and the non-conference games this year. They've got by far the toughest schedule in the conference. It's not even close.
I agree, but I'm telling you, they have the quarterback from UCF, McKenzie. His leg is healed, so I think he's going to bounce back 100%, hopefully.
I hope so.
I mean, I think they're being Notre Dame week 1. I'll go on record and say that. If they don't beat Notre Dame, then I'm wrong.
Well, they're playing at home. I'm not going to be shocked if they win that game, but I don't think they're going to win. But I wouldn't be shocked.
So, yeah, that's what, and I do think that I think I think I have them beating Miami as well. If the game's in Tallahassee, if I'm not mistaken, I do think they beat Miami as well.
Okay.
They're not going to be as bad as they were last year. Even if it's just a 5-7, like most likely what they would have been last year, they're not going to be as bad as last year. They're going to be better.
Well, they were awful outside of the North Carolina game. Just if they play like that again,
they can't be worse.
They're going to go 4-8.
Yeah, I don't see that happening again. I mean, Mike Norvell has a full off season with the team finally after last year's situation, we'll call it. So, but we'll see. If they can't beat Notre Dame week 1, though, I'll come on here and say I'm wrong about it.
Okay. I will be awaiting your call.
It'll be coming.
Call either way.
Thanks for taking my call, Mark.
All right, McD.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking my call, Mark. Go Terps.
Our man McD on the line, talking up the Terps, of course, talking up Florida State. He likes 7 or 8 wins for the Noles. That would be a huge accomplishment for Mike Norvell against what is by far the toughest schedule in the ACC, and coming off a dismal 3-6 campaign. 3-6 for that team. That team was even worse than 3-6. They lost to Louisville. Louisville went 4-7. Louisville was awful. Louisville beat Florida State by 32 points. Pitt was okay. Pitt annihilated Florida State. Everybody annihilated Florida State outside of what? They beat Duke. They pulled off, somehow they beat North Carolina. I'll give them credit. It happened. North Carolina actually showed up. They didn't show up, but they actually, that was the North Carolina football team that played that night. I don't know that was the biggest aberration of the football season, that game, because Florida State was almost 0-9 awful, because the third game they won was against Jacksonville State. They lost to Miami by 42 points. They lost to Louisville by 32 points. They got obliterated by Pitt. They played a fairly decent game against Notre Dame. They lost by, I think, 16. They actually played Notre Dame decent. They were close at halftime. Those were 4 games right there. Of course, they didn't play Clemson. They didn't want to play Clemson. They lost that opening game against Georgia Tech, which they dominated the first quarter, but they couldn't get anything done, and they ended up not being able to move the ball against Georgia Tech. And then the other loss was against, who am I missing? Does it matter? It doesn't. Whoever else they lost to. Georgia Tech, Miami, Pitt, Notre Dame. I missed somebody along the line. It doesn't matter. Yeah, Florida State, they've got a long way to go. But the thing that I will say is that let's not because I'm starting to get sucked into just thinking whatever happened last year is going to happen this year. Maybe some of you haven't heard this little spiel I give from time to time. Let's keep in mind. And I would be interested to see the preseason magazine. So a lot of the preseason magazines have come out this week and will be coming out this week. I'm going to take a little bit of time off, but not a whole lot. So you're going to see me on here, but I got some things to do and I got some places to be. So you're going to see me sporadically and maybe I'll show up elsewhere. But I say that thinking that I'm going to pick up the preseason magazines in the next week or two. The one thing that I'm going to be tracking, which is kind of difficult because of the lack of games that were played last season, so we didn't have a full schedule anywhere. So this is my little case study has to go on hiatus for a year, unfortunately, because what happened the previous 3 years was I did this. I went through Street and Smiths and Athlons and Lindy's, and I basically could only find about 3 or 4 examples in those magazines going through the entire Power Five. We're talking about 65 teams, of finding about 3 to 4 teams per magazine. Follow me here. 3 to 4 teams per magazine in the Power Five that those magazines predicted to either increase or decrease by at least 3 wins from the previous season, meaning that there were only 3 to 4 teams that they were going out on a limb to say this team is decidedly dramatically improved or in decline. Well, that's all fine and good, except for they're way off. Because over the course of those 3 seasons, I didn't find 3 or 4 teams that either increased or decreased their win total by at least 3 games from the previous season. You know what the totals were? They were in the 19 to 23 range. Think about that for a second. We got 65 teams in Power 5 play. We've got major magazines only predicting 3 or 4 of these teams to increase or decrease their win totals by at least 3 games. Basically, they just want to sell magazines. They put together really good magazines, but when it comes to the predictions, so there's really good information in the magazines, but when it comes to predictions, all they do is basically take last year's standings and they just duplicate it and tweak it by a game or so, and they basically play it safe, and they just predict the same teams to do the same things. But that's not what happens on the field. What happens on the field is that 19 to 23 of those 65 teams in the Power 5 either increase or decrease their win totals by 3 games from one season to the next. So that means Lindy's and Athlons and Street and Smiths, they need to be looking for those opportunities. They need to be looking at the situation where Minnesota goes from 6-6 to 10-2, like they did from 2018 to 19. And looking for trying to think of the other examples that year. There were 5 in the Big Ten. Wisconsin, who went from 7-5 to 10-2. Indiana went from 5-7 to 8-4. There were 4 or 5 examples in the ACC from 2018 to 2019. Three-win difference. Syracuse going from 9-3 in the regular season the previous season to 4-8. NC State going from 9-3 to 4-8. 2018 to 19. So I hope I'm making that clear that we should expect more from those caliber of magazines. That, again, the pictures are nice. The information's great. They print all the schedules. We can get those online. I just want information. So I'm not that crazy about whether they give me predictions. I'll make my own predictions. I'll rely on my own projections of the season. But I think it's pretty awful. It's pretty pathetic when these magazines basically just take the previous season's standings and just more or less duplicate them. When the data tells us and reality tells us that there are going to be double-digit teams, upward of 20 teams in the Power Five that are going to have drastically different seasons this year. So who are those teams going to be? Well, if you produce what you tout to be one of the best college football publications, then you should be able to predict or take the risk of predicting who those teams are going to be. Who are they going to be? King Vegeta, thank you so much for the super chat contribution, as well as BGPO Football Funk. DeAndre, thank you so much for your loyal support and contributions. And if DeAndre was on the line right now, he would be telling you, support the voice of college football. King Vegeta, thank you so much as well. And I should probably dive back to, because I never miss a super chat. Got to read these, of course. King Vegeta telling us that UCLA is going to pull off an upset in week 1 against LSU. Actually, it's a week 2 for UCLA. UCLA is playing a week 0 game against Hawaii, so they're going to have a game under their belts. That could significantly help them if teams truly do improve the most from week 1 to week 2. UCLA's got a week 1 game against Hawaii, UCLA and LSU. So go Bruins 49-42. Really? UCLA's going to put up 49 on LSU. All right. Joey, I highly doubt something about Maryland is good, but responding to McD, thinking Maryland, probably picking Maryland to win the national championship. McD says Georgia Tech is 1 year away. They might go bowling, maybe 7-5. There you go, Paul V. Thank you so much for the example there. Again, I counted them up for 3 consecutive years. It was between 18 and 23 teams, 3 consecutive years, either increased or decreased their win total by at least 3 wins. North Carolina went from 2 under Larry Fedora to 7 under Mac Brown. And again, my case study is going to have to be truly put on hold for another season because of the lack of games played this past year. So you really can't match up the records. You can't match up and give a blanket rundown of the 3-game increase or decrease, but you can look at, let's say, if Northwestern, who went 7-2 last year, goes 4-8, and say, well, even though they didn't play a full schedule last year, they clearly went from being a top 10 or 15 team in the country to being a bad team. So that would be an example of a team that declined considerably from 1 year to the next. Jobo, check out my Georgia Clemson preview on the Clemson channel. Did a way too early Georgia Clemson preview, and I expect I'm going to start going through the top week 1 matchups, which include Alabama, Miami, Louisville, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Florida State, and others. They're in week 1. I'm going to go through the week 1 matchups and provide those previews. But I posted Clemson and Georgia over on the Clemson channel. Check out the preview there. Eric Gilbert, there's much talk about the former LSU tight end signing at Georgia. Don't know if that's been confirmed. I posted a video about the speculation concerning that move of, again, Eric Gilbert. It is Eric Gilbert, from what I understand, not Eric Gilbert, Eric Gilbert, the number one tight end in the nation 2 years ago, coming out of high school, caught 35 balls for LSU, transferred to Florida, did nothing with the Gators, but hung around for 3 weeks in name only. And now he's been without a school for about 2 to 3 months and apparently going to Georgia. Let's see. With South Carolina, I believe South Carolina would be one of those teams from 2018 to 19. Good play there, H-Man 98. South Carolina went from 7-5 to 4-8. Let's see. In the SEC from 2018 to 19, did we have any examples? Well, we had LSU go from 9-3 to 12-0. So there's an example there. We had, I believe, Tennessee go from 4-8 to 7-5. Those would be 2 examples from the SEC from 2018 to 19, in which teams moved at least 3 games in the standings. Folks, leave me your recommendations and your requests of what you would like to see on the channel. Let's look at week 1. You guys are talking about week 1. Let's give it a look here. We've got Wampa 75. Tulsa will be 2-0 against Ohio State this year. Oklahoma State and Ohio State both on the road. Mighty big prediction out of Wampa 75. Tulsa beating Ohio State. The last time Tulsa went to Ohio State, they lost a close one, 48-3. So Wampus, if you can find me and you would like to put a wager on that one, I'm here. I'm here for you on that one. I want to remind everyone that we appreciate the super chats coming in from King Vegeta and also BGPO Football Funk, DeAndre. But also keep in mind that you can donate directly at Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. And again, directly being the key term there. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV. Also keep in mind that if you go down in the description section below, you can grab the Amazon link. Please use the Amazon link when you shop at Amazon. 160 million people. This is the stat of the year for me. And maybe it will be for our business, our channel right here. 160 million people a month, Americans a month, shop on Amazon. 160 out of 330 million Americans. It basically tells me that half of America shops at Amazon every month. So if half the people on here shop at Amazon and use the link in the description section of the videos, same shopping experience, doesn't cost you a dime, doesn't cost you a penny. There you go. We have big is the guy Ed Sullivan used to say years and years back, really big plans over the voiceofcollegefootball.com. Go to voiceofcollegefootball.com. Please register for free at the top of the screen. Right now, we simply have links to our channels there, but I would like for you to just check out the site. Check out the look, the display, the decor, the colors, the graphics, the scheme, the aesthetics of the channel. And let me know what you think. Go to the site, voiceofcollegefootball.com, register for free at the top of the screen. Let me know what you think of the site. And again, right now, we just have links going to all our channels, but we have plans of what to do with our site. If you have ideas, I'm always up to hear your ideas. I am not a creative person. You guys probably have better ideas than I do, but I do have ideas on what to do on our site, voiceofcollegefootball.com. Voiceofcollegefootball.com. I'm going to beat it in your brains. voiceofcollegefootball.com. Please check it out. But very soon we will have additional content. And when I say content, that doesn't always mean just me on a video talking. There are other ways to display content and get you involved over there and make it much, much worth your while. We have come to the end of May. Therefore, we are going to be we're going to be drawing our $25 gift card giveaway for the people that signed up. And you still have time till the end of tomorrow. You've got time to sign up at thevoiceofcollegefootball.com for our $25 gift card giveaway. So we will announce the winner very soon. 2 ways in which you can help us, in addition to shopping at Amazon and contributing there at Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App, is do exactly what Alabama football fan Roll Tide has to say. Hit that like button and share the videos out on social media. We need to increase viewership, and you can help us do that. Just share the videos out on social media. I released a video this morning talking Texas A&M recruiting with Andrew Hattersley of Gig'em 247 Sports in the morning. Tomorrow morning, listen up. I'm releasing my video on coaches on the hot seat. I believe I selected 8 coaches on the hot seat, and they're pretty much the ones that everyone's talking about. But the reason you watch is because I'm going to let you know what each coach has to do to keep his job. I'm going to let you know what each of those 8 coaches have to do to keep their jobs. Plus, I got 3 wild cards. So talking about 3 coaches who may not necessarily be talked about right now on the hot seat, but go season by season back in time and think about it. There's typically a couple of coaches who get fired that shock everybody. There's all the coaches that we know that are on the hot seat, but then there are typically a couple of coaches that get the axe and nobody expected it. And so I point out 3 coaches who may find themselves out of a job if things don't break right and they don't pull through this season, even though they're not getting a whole lot of discussion concerning them being on a hot seat. voiceofcollegefootball.com. And the phone lines are open. You see the number on the ticker at 860-499-3332. Mike Gundy. Dino Babers. Clay Helton. Jeff Brom. Okay. Those are some interesting selections, along with, of course, Scott Frost. So again, the video is going to be released at 5 a.m. Don't worry. Some people are concerned that when a video releases, they think I'm up for that. No, the video is scheduled to be released at 5 a.m. I will be tucked away, hopefully sound asleep in bed. Hopefully, that's not always the case. Sound asleep in bed while the video releases. Please check it out. Will be released in the morning with my 8 coaches on the hot seat with 3 wild cards. Boone Pickens fan. Boone Pickens fan. Boone Pickens fan. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Boone Pickens fan. Appreciate you being here. Would love to know how long you've been watching and who you root for. I'm guessing it's those Pokes. Would you like them for the new studio, Mark? Some old neon lights in my garage. If they look good and they work, if you can guarantee that they work and they're not going to look like old neon lights, that they're going to look like new neon lights. But Boone Pickens fan, I appreciate you thinking of me. And I have long since thought about the set here. So unfortunately, our set is not a huge priority with everything else I've got on my plate. And if I was not tied down by this earpiece, I would walk on over here and grab my to-do list and my priorities for the channel. But we have to, off the top of my head, build out Facebook, build out Instagram. We need sponsors, like a big sponsor or a bunch of little sponsors. Sponsors. Okay. So for any of you who follow this YouTube business, you know that there are sponsors and there are sponsors, meaning from time to time, somebody will offer me a sponsorship and I much appreciated it. But the sponsorships typically are just basically, here's a promo code. And if people buy that product, you get a certain percentage, you get 5%. And then you put the description, the link in the description section, and nobody buys it and you never make any money and it doesn't matter. But then you got real sponsors where they actually say, Mark, we're going to give you X number of dollars and just put our logo everywhere and you build an agreement. Those are the kind of sponsors we're looking for. Set sponsors that will help us build the channel by, of course, sponsoring the channel without conditions, except for we deliver great content. But I will alert everybody to Manscaped here. So the fine folks at Manscaped have sent me some products that I've been using now for, I've been using these products here at Manscaped for maybe 3 to 4 months. And they're pretty exceptional, I gotta say. And the deal here is we've got our trimmer, and it's an amazing, I just look good, don't I, folks? And yes, we've got our deodorant and our toner. It's all very nice. I feel clean, feel refreshed. I feel just like the babe magnet that I never have been. And then I got a nice little travel bag. So check out Manscaped. It's manscaped.com, 20% off any purchase if you use the promo code MARK1. That would be manscaped.com, 20% off if you use the promo code MARK1. All right, back at it. Let's talk football. Hot seats, more hot seats. Check out my video in the morning. Clay Helton, Coach O, Mike Gundy, Justin Fuente. I see him. They all make sense to a certain extent. Jim Harbaugh, James Franklin. Yeah, check out my video and see what you think. And yes, H-Man 998. Tennessee did go back to back in terms of increasing and decreasing wins by at least 3 at 4-8 to 7-5, and then 3-7. Ole Miss is at 7.5. That's on the point spread against Louisville. Joey Foster, put on your glasses, Mark. West Virginia is better than Maryland, is what I said. No natty talk there. Yeah. I busted my glasses like 3 or 4 months ago, and I have yet to replace them. The reason I have yet to replace my glasses basically is because I've got no optical insurance right now. I am in a place right now where I'm used to the big corporate job with all the benefits, and then I just took care of all that stuff and went to the dentist and the eye doctor on a regular basis, and now I just I kind of let that go for a while. So we're not we're going to let that go. All right. Anything else? No more calls coming in. 860-499-3332. Dan Mullen could be on my list. Maybe. I see some Dan Mullins coming through. That could be on the list. The video will post at 5 a.m. Mike Leach just got there. Good point. And Mississippi State did finish strong down the stretch in 2020. All right. Coming up on Monday, it, of course, is Memorial Day weekend. And I can't tell you exactly what I'm going to work on. It depends on a number of things, but got a very interesting project that's underway here at the Voice of College Football that I will let you know more about in the coming months when we get more near completion that I'm excited about. That's going to take a lot of work, but I hope I'm up to the challenge. And we will announce that again in a few months. And as we head toward the season, we're less than 100 days away from college football. We are hoping to launch a number of items, a number of exciting features on our voiceofcollegefootball.com site for all of you. So be waiting for that. All right, so Monday again, I don't know what I'm going to have besides my Coaches on the Hot Seat video, but on Tuesday, definitely our next live stream, unless I go live tomorrow, but the next one is scheduled coming up Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. So Tuesday at 8 on the Nebraska channel. Tuesday at 8, Nebraska channel. Please check us out there. Folks, for those of you that certainly want to help us build the channel, you know how important it is that we get our subscribers up to 1,000 on our team channels. We've got Nebraska and Oregon both at the 9:15 to 9:20 mark. So please subscribe to those channels. So here's the deal. If you love Nebraska or Oregon, of course, go subscribe to the channels. You got to do that. Or if you just love college football and want to check out the videos over there on Nebraska and Oregon. But if you could care less about Nebraska and Oregon, please still subscribe to the channels. Get us over 1,000. Once we're safely over 1,000, you know what? Go ahead and unsubscribe. So if I have an ask for tonight, it would be subscribe to the Nebraska and Oregon channels. Stay subscribed, even if you don't want to, even if you could care less about the Ducks and the Huskers, but stay subscribed until we're safely over 1,000. Then you can pull the plug on us. All right. We'll see everybody on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern for Nebraska Live on the Nebraska channel. Again, keep it locked in here at the Voice of College Football for notifications. We may go live tomorrow, depending on schedules and festivities here at the Voice of College Football headquarters for Memorial Day weekend. It was great to talk to everybody. Appreciate the support. BGPO Football Funk, King Vegeta. Thank you so much for the Super Chat contributions. Everybody else, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. We always appreciate. We'll see you next time. Bring in those requests, and I will fulfill them and continue to post college football and get us all ready for 2021. Maybe our best question all night. So before I sign off, we've got former Walmart employee. Hey, Mark, what's your workout routine trying to get healthy? And you're asking me like you think I'm the guy. I appreciate that. But I don't know if I'm the guy to get you healthy. Let's get started this way. Drink plenty of water. Point number one, drink plenty of water. There's a diet out there. I talked to a few people this weekend or the weekend before at a party that it's called 75 Hard or Go Hard 75. And part of it is that you have to drink a gallon of water a day. That's 128 ounces of water. That's pretty heavy stuff. Okay. Let's say you weigh 200 pounds. I've always heard from a number of places that you need to drink at least half the amount of water in ounces to your weight. So if you're 200 pounds, you need to drink 100 ounces of water per day. So start there. Drink water. So start there. And then 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. But you're asking about a workout. That's right. Just not about getting healthy. But the older you get, the more it's about the food that you eat, unfortunately, because I've got ice cream in the freezer right now that I'd really like to get to. What I really want to do, even though it's holy smokes, it's 2:45 in the morning. What I'd really like to do is get myself some ice cream and watch some late night TV. But so I used to lift a lot of weights. I don't do that much anymore. The nicer it is outside, the more I like to get out. And I've tried to get into yoga. Yoga is as yoga does. Yoga. It's pretty challenging and it's interesting, and it I think for long-term health, recommend the yoga. It's not pretty. I would never video myself doing yoga. That would be pretty disturbing. The Rod Farva, cut out the pop. Quit eating fast food. Grilled my meat instead of frying it. Drink more water. There you go. Absolutely, the Rod Farva. Thank you so much, everybody who sacrificed serving the country. And of course, it's Memorial Day weekend, so it's beyond serving the country, but for those people that paid the ultimate sacrifice. Absolutely. We honor them this weekend, so keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Keep their families and their loved ones in your thoughts and prayers, because they paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we could be free. All right. Good stuff, everyone. Thanks for contributing. We will see you next time right here at the Voice of College Football.